The Serengeti is a world defined by boundaries. Invisible, yet absolute lines divide life and death, predator and prey, and crucially, the wild kingdom from human intervention. For Lana, a powerful and majestic lioness, these boundaries were iron law. Her survival instinct was deeply ingrained: stay away from humans. Yet, on one scorching morning, that rule was shattered by an emotion far greater than any instinct: maternal love. It all started with Keto, the innocent and curious cub. While his mother rested, Keto was captivated by a large butterfly with brilliant orange wings, shimmering in the sunlight. The little fellow forgot all warnings, single-mindedly chasing his living toy. That tiny adventure led him straight into an unforeseen trap: a huge, dense, thorny acacia bush. A faint cry rang out. Lana sprang up when she saw her son trapped, his tender skin pierced by sharp thorns. Fear completely replaced her immense strength. Her sheer muscle power was useless. If she used force to pull Keto out, he would be permanently injured. In that moment of utter desperation, her eyes turned toward the horizon, where a patrol jeep was slowly moving. Lana had to make an unthinkable decision. She had to seek help from the only creature her instinct taught her to avoid: Ranger David. Lana was the embodiment of vigilance. With eyes constantly sweeping the horizon and ears perked for the smallest sound, she was Keto's most reliable guardian. But even the best lioness mothers face a common enemy: the innocent curiosity of youth. Keto, a small bundle of golden fur filled with energy and a yearning for exploration, constantly challenged his mother with his antics. That morning, Keto's curiosity focused on a sparkling airborne object: a large butterfly with brilliant orange wings, almost glowing under the African sun. To a cub, it wasn't just an insect. It was a challenge, a perfect stalking target. Lana was dozing, only managing a faint cautionary growl as she saw her son bolt. But Keto heard nothing else. The chase began. Keto bounced and pounced, his small body quickly becoming a golden blur darting over the dry grass. The pure joy of the imaginary hunt carried him further and further from his mother's safety, leading him straight toward a silent, massive, and formidable hazard: a dense, unforgiving acacia thorn bush. These thorns were the savannah's natural fortress. No creature approached them willingly. The butterfly, in a cruel twist of fate, fluttered right into the heart of the thorny tangle. Keto, with the heat of a young hunter, plunged his front paw and shoulder in after it. The thorns closed around him in an instant. Keto jumped back, panicked. He let out a weak mew, not a sound of challenge, but of real fear and pain. The more he struggled, the deeper the thorns dug in. Keto lay sideways, helpless, his tiny body trembling and hidden amongst the sharp branches, a captive of his own curiosity. Lana arrived in a rush of dust and power. She saw Keto, barely visible within the thorny labyrinth, in agony. Her usual majestic roar was replaced by a guttural, choked cry of terror. She lunged forward, trying to bite through the branches. But the thorns were too tough, too numerous, and the fear of harming her cub stopped her cold. She tried her claws, but they only made the bush shake and caused Keto more pain. Lana stood upright, her mouth wide open, not to threaten a foe, but as an expression of utter helplessness. She was trapped in her own despair, blocked by a painful truth: her strength was not the solution. In that moment, Lana realized that to save her son, she had to break every rule she had ever known. She had to appeal to the one she was programmed to fear: man. Lana stood frozen beside the thorn bush, her heart constricted by pain and futility. Any predator approaching Keto now would be instantly torn apart, yet she herself couldn't touch her son. Between Keto's weak cries and her own desperate growls, Lana suddenly paused. She looked up toward the sound of a familiar Jeep engine echoing from the west. It was Ranger David. Her hunting instinct told her to hide her cub, to stalk and defend her territory from any human interference. But her maternal instinct screamed something entirely different. She had watched David for years. He never harmed her pride. He was the one who brought water, who chased off poachers. An unspoken understanding existed between them. Today, Lana had to risk everything on that understanding. In an act that astonished even herself, Lana backed a step away from the bush, letting out a roar that was not a threat, but a plea, a high, sharp sound unlike her usual territorial thunder. She ran a short distance toward the approaching jeep, then immediately turned back to look at Keto, then back toward the vehicle. It was a clear and desperate signal. "Help me." David, accustomed to the silence and subtle cues of the savannah, immediately recognized the abnormality. Lana's roar wasn't rage. It contained unsolvable panic. Despite knowing that approaching a distressed lioness was an extreme risk, David still stopped the Jeep at a safe distance and turned off the engine. He reached for his wire cutters and a thick blanket on the passenger seat. He stepped out of the vehicle alone. Lana stood there, in her most tense posture, mouth agape. But her eyes looked at David not as an enemy, but as a final savior. David didn't rush. He walked slowly, maintaining eye contact and speaking to her in a calm, soothing voice. He was asking for her permission, building a fragile bridge of trust between two worlds. Finally, the unthinkable happened. Lana trembled. She gave a low, quiet warning growl, but then she took a step back. She granted David the space he needed to reach her son. It was an absolute concession, a moment where thousands of years of survival instinct were traded for love. David understood that he was allowed into her territory, and he had to proceed with the precision of a surgeon and the respect of a guardian. All sounds on the savannah seemed to halt as David approached the thorn bush. Lana stood just a few meters away, her body coiled like a spring, ready to intervene at any wrong move. This was the ultimate trust test. A small mistake, and David's life would be forfeit. David knelt beside the bush. He saw
Don't
Keto,
worry, little
his
one.
small eyes filled
I will
with
help you.
tears and fear. The cub was exhausted from trying to free himself. David began talking to Keto in a soft, reassuring voice. He knew his calmness had to soothe both the cub and the mother watching from behind. The rescue was a major challenge. The acacia bush was too dense, and the curved, steel-hard thorns were deeply embedded in Keto's fur and skin. David couldn't pull him. With maximum caution, he used his wire cutters to meticulously snip away the largest branches that formed Keto's cage. With every snip, David glanced at Lana, confirming her nonverbal consent. Then came the moment of highest tension. A large thorn was deeply embedded in Keto's shoulder. To remove it, David had to reach further into the thorns. Lana let out a deep, shaking rumble, an instinctual reaction she couldn't suppress when a human touched her cub. David froze, looked at Lana, and with a silent nod, she seemed to understand. He gently, skillfully tweezed the thorn free. Finally, Keto was free. David pulled the cub safely out of the bush and gently placed him on the grass. He didn't stop to check the injuries. He knew the safest place for Keto was in his mother's embrace. David retreated immediately, his hand raised to his chest as a gesture of respect, giving Lana space. In an instant, Lana rushed forward. She didn't spare David a glance. All her focus, love, and power were poured into her tiny son. She licked away the minor cuts, the scrapes, and most importantly, she was licking away the fear that had gripped Keto. The walls separating the two worlds had been completely shattered. As Lana embraced Keto, David stood watching the sacred reunion. He knew that no degree or experience could have taught him this moment. It was a moment of pure trust between species. Lana looked up. David braced himself for a final, warning roar, a reminder that he was only a guest. But instead, she let out a single, low, profound purr. The sound radiated peace, the absolute opposite of her earlier cries of distress. It was a wordless thank you, a silent acknowledgement of David's courage and empathy. David responded with a slight bow of his head, a gesture of deep mutual respect. He quietly returned to his Jeep and drove away, leaving the mother and cub to their privacy after the ordeal. The story of Lana, Keto, and David is more than just a rescue. It is proof that love is the ultimate power. It forced a wild queen to place her faith in her ancient adversary. It reminds us that the survival of the wild is not just about protecting it from poachers, but about building bridges of connection, bridges built with empathy and patience. Ranger David is not a conqueror of nature. He is a guardian of its delicate balance. He represents a gentle solution in conservation, where understanding is prioritized over force. It is these quiet, courageous, and respectful actions that build trust between humans and the wild. We don't need to fight nature. We need to listen to it. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe that empathy can save the wild, please join the conversation today. Like this video to help spread this message of cross-species trust and connection. Comment below with a red heart if you believe a mother's love is the greatest force of all. Subscribe to our channel to follow more inspiring stories of incredible connections and the gentle solutions saving our planet.